So hi, I'm Natalie Piper. I graduated FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. When I initially decided to go to college, I was like, oh, I'll do fashion design. This is before Project Runway. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. So I get into class and I take everything that I can. I get a certification in swimming and corsetry, leather making, accessories, because I didn't know what I wanted to go into. No one had told me, oh, there are tons of jobs in fashion, just different types of jobs in fashion. So all I saw was the couture. And I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to do couture. So I get in there, and I think the biggest thing for me was that during my college career, I interned places, because I ended up interning for a French designer who, have you guys seen Devil Wears Prada? Yeah, that's exactly how it was in that place. And the moment I had that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, is this gonna be my whole career? Is this what it's gonna be like? And I was like, I've got to change. So it gave me enough time in college to pivot and look at some other options and where I might fit. So I think the biggest thing is finding somewhere where you feel comfortable, what you enjoy, and where you feel like you're gonna fit in the best. If you want couture, if you want the attitudes, then great, go for it. But if you want something else where you feel like you can kind of fit in better, you know, you're gonna have to do a little searching. So eventually I went into children's wear, which I'm very happy that I went into. It gave me the people that I was working with, the people that you're gonna be working with, you'll be working with for 8 hours a day. So you better like them. And then the people that not only are you working with in the office, you're also going to be working with a team more than likely overseas or across the country. And these relationships, I think that's the other thing that really, the one thing I realized is that relationships are so important. And even if they don't speak your language, you try to hold as much respect for them as they would for you. This is not someone that is just like you're saying, do this, do that. No, it's built on respect. That's why I make sure that everything that I put together and send off to wherever I'm sending it to, that I'm gonna have full accountability on everything that I put into this thing. So relationships are huge. Networking in the industry is huge. If you know someone, they can get you into the door and get you into a position that you might need to know. So think about these things when you're thinking about a job. So I just kind of want to go over first. It's going to let me. Kind of what your job outline would look like as a fashion designer and kind of how the flow goes in a design position. So usually you meet with your sales data. That could be a team, that could be just one individual, that could be yourself. I've worked in corporate, huge corporations to very small corporations and startups. So when I'm talking about this, it's kind of gonna vary and I'll bring out points. So like with your sales data, like we had a team at Sears and Kmart, and we had a whole team that would come in and present a sales presentation on what sells and what doesn't. When I launched the line for Down East Girls, I was it. And so I was able to just pull all the information from where I could pull it. You look at your sales data and then you decide, okay, you kind of get a feeling. You look out in the market and go, you know, is blue, is pink, you know, are big jeans starting to trend? What might be the next thing that's trending? What colors might be trending? What do you see? So then you go out into the market and you shop the market and you see what the competitors are doing and see, especially if you're, like depending on what business you are, you have a customer, a certain customer type. And so like with Sears and Kmart, we had a certain customer type. And we'd shop the market not only at the top level, but all the way down and make sure we hit our competitors. We'd also reach out to the trend services. You have color trend, and then you'd analyze silhouettes. You'd build mood boards, research fabric, create black and white sketches, create patterns and graphics, present line to the buyers, build tech packs and PLMs, meet with technical designers, send tech packs and PLMs to manufacture, and get pricing, meeting, and sourcing allocated styles, receive samples, fit, and TD, and prepare samples for show. So I'm gonna go over each one of these little things really quick, and in each category, I want to also give you awareness to other job positions in each category, because I had no clue when I went in. I was like, I didn't know that. And then my first job, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have done that. So like the sales data, AI is gonna be a big thing with the sales data. So you'll meet with the people, like I said before, to go over all the sales data and see which silhouettes sell the best and which ones don't. And then get a sense of where your color and your style were the season before, and how does that transition to the next season. You don't want to just jump from one weird color group to another. There's actually a flow and a transition through each color group. So then you go out, you'll buy inspiration samples, you'll search the market, and you'll also search for new fabrics. New fabrics are coming out on the market all the time. So if you'll want to pick up those for the fabric sample swatches. So after you have all these things, then you're going to look at trend and color. There's a whole bunch of trend services. WGSN has been around for a long time. You could actually be a trend forecaster. I didn't know this. They actually go to Coachella, Saint-Tropez, they travel around. I mean, it sounds like a wonderful job. At the same time, they've got to look, they've got to have a sense of style, a sense of color of where the future is going to be, and take that gamble on where that color is going to be and where those silhouettes are going to be. So that is a job opportunity there. Same with a color developer. Pantone has been in the industry for a very long time. They set the color standards for almost everything you see as far as printing is concerned, and all your clothes. You could go and develop colors for Pantone and then launch new color lines, which I think is really exciting. So after you get done with the trend and the sales, and you basically know what kind of silhouettes your customers like, then you'll put together your story, your mood board. So you'll pick out a group of colors that you like that's gonna be your color story for that season, and just themes and stories. You gotta ask yourself, what is the direction? What is the story? Where am I going to take this? You know, how do I want it to evolve from this season to that season, and still encompass all the silhouettes that you want to encompass? And that's where you can get fun and creative, and even start looking at fabrics and prints and graphics. So once I have all my silhouettes made out, I would go to my graphic artist, which is one person or a team. And they mostly do most of their work in Illustrator and Photoshop. And they have their own process of gathering inspiration and then creating fabrics. Usually at the beginning of a season, you'll have your director stand up and present, this is the direction we're going in. The theme is ocean, nautical. So everything should fit within that theme. And then everyone goes about and does what they do. So the graphic artist would go and find all the nautical stuff that they can find, and use the Pantones that they have pulled to create a whole bunch of prints. Then they would have a review and pick out which prints they're gonna put in what silhouettes. This same time is when the R&D in fabric, if you're interested in kind of more of the technical end of things, how fibers are created, how fibers are woven together. I mean, you have natural fibers, all your cottons, but then you have polyesters, which are amazing. They're made from a liquid and shot through water and turned into a solid form. And there's all different types of chemical fibers. But the other thing you need to also keep in mind through this whole design process, which I think is making which is a bigger deal now, is sustainability. You know, what can we do to be more sustainable? You know, where are we getting our original fibers from? So you could go into fabric development and do different types of weaves and different types of yarns. You could even go into testing new fibers. And then there's also fabric sourcing. We had a fabric sourcer at Sears and Kmart, and their job was to go overseas and search out different types of fabrics. And we did outerwear too. So they would learn the tech fibers and the fabrics. Not only that, on fabrics, there's different applications that you can do to fabrics. There's brushing, there's waterproofing, there's all different types of things. So that can get really exciting. So if you're a little more into not so much the artsy, like drawing and stuff, fiber content and stuff does great. And fiber, especially now with the sustainability, they're gonna be looking for new ways to do fibers because polyesters don't break down as easy. And then you can even put silver into fabrics and it makes it antibacterial. So that can get really exciting. So after you've researched the trend, you've got your mood board, you've got your silhouettes, you will present the line, usually depending, it could be a big team like this, it could be a smaller team of 5 or 6 people. So that's really important that you have some presentation skills that you can take them through and you can call out specific things and details in each of your garments. The other thing that happens when you present to your team, you're presenting to usually the CEO, the buyers, maybe some salespeople. But usually the buyers are going to have a lot of opinions about your things that you've designed because they're buying for their line and they also know who their customer is and what things that they have to hit. So you could become a buyer. If you're good with math and numbers, buyers, it's really fun. You get to go around to different vendors and just like you're shopping all day. And you get to shop for what the line is going to look like in whatever store or online thing that you have. And it's mostly math, but you've got to be accountable to what your floor plan looks like and how your sales through goes through, and then anticipate that going forward. You could also be a PLM developer. So tech packs, when I say a tech pack, what that is it gives you a sketch and it gives you all the details that like this shirt would need. Like it gives me the amount of buttons, the size of the buttons. It'll call out like little details of the pleating. That is all done on computers. Well, I mean, you can do it in Excel sheets too, but it's moving more to computers. And so with PLM development and management, you could actually handle the whole inputting and the management of the software. So if you're more on the tech side and more into computers, but you still want to be involved in fashion, that's a great way to like kind of involve both and mesh those together. The other thing that's happening right now is there's a big transition in fashion. Instead of doing like these black and whites that you see, or sorry, these silhouettes, there's a 3D program, so you build it on the 3D program. The 3D program will write out your tech pack. It'll do your pattern making, and then you just send it all over. So that is what is happening right now, is that is transitioning. The other thing with fashion is it's not just about creating beautiful garments. There are standards and guidelines that we get from the government. Every 6 months they're updated. And so you have to make sure that you're on top of all these things. There's lead in different items, in buttons and snaps and zippers. So you'll have to get lead testing. And then especially for children's, there's the flammability in the product, and too loose of garments can actually cause damage, like if a child is trying to get out of a crib or something like that, and it's too baggy or it has a pocket on it, it could get hooked, and if they're trying to get out of a burning house, they can't get out. So they built these standards, so you just watch them, and it's mostly for kids' clothing, but they do fall over into adult clothing as far as contents of like what's in some of your notions like your zippers and your buttons and stuff. So after I've had my review, shown my line, they've said, okay, this looks great. I've started my tech packs. I've put everything into the system for my tech packs. I meet with my technical designer. My technical designer, so I started off in fashion. In the fashion is this whole line, and now I'm a technical designer, so I've kind of hopped over to technical design. They create the patterns, they do this, the specs, so the measuring from, you know, how long it is and across, and then they'll also do the grading. So I never thought I'd use math so much. But I am taking fractions and converting them to decimals all day long. And I don't want that to scare you off. I mean, after you get into the habit of it, it gets easier. But making the patterns and adjusting the patterns, and then I have the conversations with the manufacturers to make sure that all the adjustments are happening. So I'll write up the first spec, put that in the tech pack. And then after our tech packs are complete, we send them to vendors, manufacturers. These manufacturers look at the tech packs, they come back to us with costs. And everything will be cost out. The buttons will be cost out, the fabric will be cost out, so you can adjust. So if I wanted a lighter weight fabric on this, which would reduce the cost of this garment, then that's something I can do at that point in time. So in this point, you could become a manufacturer. They're really pushing to have more manufacturing done in the US. We've lost a lot of it over the last 30 years. So that's an option, become a manufacturer. Sourcing, I have a friend who has been in sourcing for a long time now, and he has traveled the world. If you want to travel a ton, it has to do a lot with numbers though too, because you're negotiating costs. So relationships are really important in how you handle those relationships, negotiating costs, and then numbers are important for that type of job. But it's a really fun job because sourcing will usually meet with you after they get back, and then you guys can problem solve any issues that come up that you might need to change out. Like I just need to do plain sleeves, not pleated sleeves. It'll take 20 cents off, kind of thing. And now they're starting with some more AI potential of the source chain management. So they can narrow in on like how many, like if we're gonna order 500 pieces of this, how much fabric are we gonna need, you know? And they're starting to like narrow that down to cut costs. So there's also that. So then the next piece in the puzzle, after we've gotten all our costs back and we've okayed it with each supplier that we're gonna go with, they'll start sending us fit samples. The fit samples will come, meet with the designer and the technical designer. You'll fit it either on a human being or on a form, and you'll make suggestions on what to do, what adjustments to make. A lot of the pattern making is done on computer now. So you could either make the changes on the computer in the pattern making software, or you can have the vendor do it. It just kind of depends on how they work. Also here, at the same time that you're getting samples, you're getting lab dips and fabric approvals. So if I said I wanted this cotton, you know, in a 200 gram, they would send me what they thought was cotton in a 200 gram. There's a machine, I can punch it and then I can weigh it to make sure that I'm getting the right weight of the fabric. And then I also have Pantone books. So then when I get my color lab dips, they'll usually send 3 on one sheet of like the red, and I'll put it up against the Pantone and I can put it in a light box and make sure that it's hitting the right color. So going back to jobs, there's all in color. Sometimes in bigger companies, there's a color tester. They handle all the color in the whole building, and they do color testing on everyone, and also do a presentation of like what color trends are going to be big. So that's that. Once you receive the samples, this is after you've gone through a couple fits. You really don't want to go through too many fits because then it costs the other person money for these. And that's where your relationship and your accountability really come into play. In those tech packs, did I send out everything that I could? Did I go through it with a fine-tooth comb? Did I forget a button? Did I forget a seam? And make sure whatever I'm sending them, I'm going to be accountable for. Because if they come back and they said, oh, I see there's a button on your sketch, but there's not a button here. That's going to cost you another 20 cents. And then you're like, oh, you know what? I made that mistake. I'm sorry. You know what? We'll take the hit. Put the button on, kind of thing. So once you've received all your samples, depending on how the company works or your business works, if it's a boutique business, you'll get all your samples together and you'll go to a show, and then you'll have salespeople there at the show and you'll sell it there. You could sell it direct online. So there's that option too. But basically, you get them. You receive your samples, you do quality control, you look at them, you meet with the marketing department and you kind of say, this was my thought process on this. I really wanted it to be spring floral garden, and this was my vision. And they said, great, and they come up with a whole plan of how they're gonna market it and what they're gonna do. And then same with your social media at that point. So basically your mood board and your theme sets the whole tone for the whole sales pitch. So you want to make sure that everything off the bat is strong and good, and then that way your whole story can be told all the way through, and that's when it'll be most effective. Yeah, that's about it. Any questions? That was a lot of information really fast. Sorry, I get stuck in New York fastness. No question? Yeah?
Like all of the designs you had on the slide, did you design them?
Yes. So that's the other thing. So when you're in college, you'll want to make sure that you start a portfolio. And a lot of them are digital now. So like this is my portfolio. And you can like plug into this. This was the one that we were looking at. And so this would be a whole collection. And initially, I probably started off with 15 or 10 more silhouettes than what you see here. Just because in presenting to the rest of the team, they want to make changes and they have other call outs. Like the buyers might say, you know what, for this age range of 10 to 14, dresses sell much better than tops do. So we want more dresses. And that even evolves over time, you know, depending on who your customer is and what's happening in society. The biggest thing I could say is be conscious about how you design. I feel like we went from 4-season releases, you know, spring, fall, winter, and everything, to fast fashion, you know, your Forever 21, where they're releasing every month. And then it creates in society, think about the consumer. The consumer then gets trained. You guys want something new, you want something hot, you know, right that minute. And you get trained to then go, and then they have those monthly deliveries, and you're consuming all this stuff. What happens to all this stuff after you consume it? Where does it go? Yeah, it goes in landfills. A lot of your polyester blends and all those synthetic fibers that I was talking about, when you wash them in your washing machine, you wash them and the little filaments get into the water system. So, you know, how can we solve these issues? The dyes that we use to dye a lot of these clothes, same thing, they're chemicals. They go into the water systems. So how can we create really cute, great stuff, but try to do it where there's more sustainability? And I think that's really where this industry is evolving. And I wouldn't be surprised if we move back to the 4 releases instead of the 12 releases. Forever 21 is shutting down. So some of the bigger name stores that are into fast fashion are because I think the environment is changing. So, yeah.
I'm just wondering what got you into fashion.
Well, it's funny because growing up in Utah, and this is before it was on TV, I didn't know you could be a fashion designer. My mom taught me how to sew. I couldn't draw very well at all. And so at one point I came to my life going, oh my gosh, I want to do something. I'm artsy, I danced before. So I'm like, what is something that I could feel, like I'm having a voice? And my sister was living in New York and she's like, you should go to FIT. I'm like, okay. And I was scared to death because I took one art class. And I mean, if you've seen, and back then, that's when a lot of the drawing was just hand drawing and they hadn't even moved over to computers. That tells you how old I am. But 4 months before I decided to go to FIT, I made sure that, I took some art classes, I worked on my art, I got my portfolio, pretty good. I had some garments that I had sewn in the portfolio. So luckily it was good enough to get me into FIT. I have a couple friends that have gone to Slick, and from what I understand it's a great program. One of the friends that I have is now a technical designer for anthropology, and she lives in PA. And then I have another friend who opened up Boda Bridal here in Salt Lake. So, there's lots of options as far as schooling and I guess it depends on what you want to do and what type of fashion you want to do. Do you want to open up your own business? In Utah, it's great. There's Ivy City Co., Cozy Earth. The other thing that's great is if you love the outdoors, we have a lot of outdoor companies near here. And I would say the first thing, this summer, go take an internship somewhere. Find one of these. There's Black Diamond, there's Cotopax. There's lots of outdoor, even in this area and in Colorado, that you could even just go take a couple months just to get an idea of is this the atmosphere I want to be in? Is this what I want to do? And it'll change depending on the size of the company. When I was with it down east, I was the only one doing all the jobs for that, which I loved at the time because I'd come from New York where I was in a huge company and I was just like, this is your lane, drive down your lane. And so to come to down east and be told, oh, you get to decide that. You get to decide that. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is awesome. So I think that's the other thing too, is look at the company that you're interning at or looking at and say, okay, is this the environment? Do I like the small? Do I like the big? How much stuff do I like on my plate? Do I want to learn other stuff? That was the great thing about down east, is I got to learn what a lot of the other people did in the company. So, any other questions? Yeah.
What's your favorite collection you've designed?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think it would probably be, there's this Christmas, well, I have elements because the other thing in fashion design school, what they do is they kind of give you an overview of men and women. I don't think it's in this one. So there's an overview of men and women fashion studies. And then they want you to kind of narrow it down the last year of your fashion. And they want you to focus on, are you going to do men's? Are you going to do women's? Are you going to do kids? And then are you going to do knit or wovens? When you go out into the career field, you'll see a listing saying fashion designer for knits. Because knits is so intensive, FIT had there's a whole certification just for knitwear. But don't make it feel like I picked this one thing and that's the only thing I get to do. You can always go and take an extra class and learn about it. And if you want to move from wovens to knitwear, you can do that really easily. So, but my favorite thing is I have this cute little cable sweater. That was probably one of my favorite collections, and it had a zipper and it was really detailed. So I was really proud of the sweater, but this Christmas line is pretty cute. I'd have to say my favorite things that I've designed is the stuff for Down East. And that's probably because I it was me, and I had most of the control over the decisions. The stuff I did before, like I launched the Joe Boxer line and the swimwear line and the active line at Sears and Kmart, which was fine, but it wasn't like I had full control. So maybe it's a control thing. But yeah, I would say that. Any other questions? No?
I have a question.
Yes.
Overall of your career, what has been your favorite part and either your least favorite part, like the most challenging part?
Let's see. My favorite part is probably with the Down East, with having so much creative, just being so creative and having my hand in so many parts of the business and building those relationships even with the boutique owners. Like I'd go to the sales because I believe that if I don't know what's happening, down with the troops in the ground, then how can I design anything that's good for them? So I think building those relationships and doing that for Down East was probably one of my favorite parts. I think what's one of the hardest parts is probably going back to the relationships. Sometimes it can be very difficult. It can get intense when you're working with a team and you're working with a manufacturer overseas, and making sure that you have everything put together and the manufacturer overseas has an idea of what needs to be done. And once you've gotten to so many fits, obviously there's something going wrong in the communication. There have been times that I've had to jump on at night with overseas and had to talk to them face to face with Zoom and kind of go over what the issues might be. And then if a mistake that does come in can cost thousands of dollars. I mean, the nice thing about fashion, you're not saving lives. So it's not that stressful. But if you do make a mistake and you make it, own it first, own it right away. And then if it comes in and it's bad, if you can with Down East, we had on the spec, the leg openings for a long pant were too short. You couldn't get your foot through it. How are you going to sell those? You're not. So we got all the stock in. Luckily, at the last minute, we're like, let's make it a capri. It'll be a capri pant. So we had some sewers there. We took the inventory and we just chopped it off and started making them capris. So we were able to save that. And that's the other thing. In your head, you might have this idea of exactly how you want this thing to look. You have to be able to go, you know what? It's okay if it doesn't turn out exactly like this. It's okay, because by the end of the process, it may not. And sometimes you have to sacrifice some of those points. But will it sell? Will it make money? Yeah, then we'll just keep it and we'll roll with it.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
Sorry, last one. When you do the fit checks with different people, you said sometimes they're on mannequins, sometimes they're on actual people. Is it more one way, more people or more dress forms, or if it is real people, how are you finding those people to try it on? So that's the issue I'm having right now because I am in technical design now, and the company that I work for, we do baby all the way up to 3XL. So I'm needing people, especially kids, and they grow so fast. So within 3 months, so I need my size 6, I need my size 8, and you have certain sizes that you'll fit in the industry. I fit my medium, and then I've got my 2XL, 3XL. And so basically, it kind of varies depending on where you're at. When I was at Sears and Kmart, our technical designers were, and this is when I was a designer, were in Chicago and we were in New York. So we do everything over Zoom, and they do it on a form. And that was mostly for children's wear. And then when I worked for Down East and some of the other companies, it was mostly fit models. So you'd have a fit model. So there's some extra summer money too. Like if you fit within a certain size range of a company, you could be a fit model and you go in for 20, 30 minutes and you put on some clothes and you just stand there and they decide what doesn't look good and what needs to change. And so Down East, it was a fit model that we had under contract. And then now, the job I have now, it's a mix because
I'm needing such a varied, like I'm needing a toddler, a 3 toddler, a size 6, sometimes a 7, 8, a 14, 16. So it gets nuts. So I've got forms for most of those. So last case scenario, I'll put it on the form. But if I can find a human, it usually works a little bit better. I can get a better read. So, any other questions? Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate it so much. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have fun with it.